everybody. Welcome to Renew the Mind podcast. As promised yesterday on Sunday, we do have some special guests with us, and that is some of the wives of our pastors, our associate pastors, and we're going to go around and just kind of introduce them to you. We'll start with Patrick and...
It's my wife, Kelsey. You said start with wives, and then he's calling me. Oh, gosh.
That's next week's sermon.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm Kelsey Murphy. We've been married for 14 years.
Awesome.
I'm Ryan, and this is
Laura.
and we've been married almost 13 years.
I'm Daniel,
And I'm Kristen.
and we've been married for 11 years.
11 years.
11 years.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah, after 10, it's all the same number.
And Josh Hoy is here with me. He's co-hosting and asking questions with me. And our wives are not here because they're either working or my wife is busy with preparing for last-minute graduation stuff. So I will answer all of her questions in the affirmative and draw me in a positive light. But know that it comes from Carrie and her heart. Okay, we're going to dive right in here. So yesterday, the basic topic was Ephesians chapter 5, in which we tackled this passage that, honestly, for a lot of people is kind of a hard passage for them to understand. What does Paul mean when he tells wives to submit to husbands as unto the Lord? And what does he mean when he tells husbands to love their wives as Christ has loved the church? And so Paul does take some space there to spell some things out. And what we're going to do today is talk about some of the things that I really could not cover. I couldn't really get into a lot of the nitty-gritty in the span of 40 minutes. But today we're just going to try to explore that more. What does that look like? What does that look like in your particular marriages? And so we'll start with this first question here. Wives, can you think of a time when your husband set something aside, maybe a plan, a hobby, or even just rest, to love you in a really sacrificial way? And husbands, was that a hard decision to make at the time? Is there a way in which your husband does this maybe regularly or tries to do this? And if not, maybe he should begin today. Don't everybody go at once.
I'll go. When we first moved here, I had postpartum really bad. And I just didn't want to be alone ever. And so anytime Daniel would have to go to a work event or just work, I would cry. And Daniel had a lot of opportunities to build relationships with people. He got invited to a lot of places. And he didn't go to those things a lot of the time because I was so crippled by anxiety. So I think you put off a lot of things.
Joyfully. Yeah, it was we were talking about this yesterday, the questions. I probably would spend more time doing solo activities. I enjoy solitude. I enjoy being out in the woods. I enjoy going and just shooting or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And that's something that is most of the time easily set aside to invest time with my family, to be there for Kristen in her really low spot. But it is I'm putting this away because this is my sacrifice in order to love my wife better.
Yeah, that's a great example. I could think when I was you guys' age, maybe actually younger, I used to love to golf, and I would go. I mean, if the weather was good, I would go all the time, every opportunity I got, and I was still terrible. And after many years, many lessons, I realized I'm terrible at this. And one day I was on the golf course, and I just was overwhelmed with conviction by the Holy Spirit. My little kids are at home. I'm on the golf course. I'm playing 18. I'm gone for 4, 5, 6 hours with my homies, with my buddies. And I just was overwhelmed with this feeling that I missed them and that I missed Carrie. And I took my golf clubs and I threw them away. I threw them in the dumpster at the club, and I never golfed again. And it's not that, it wasn't like some great moment of martyrdom for me. It was just, when I have a day off, Saturday, I want to be with Carrie and I want to be with the kids. And she didn't even ask me to do that. And I've never regretted it, not one day. So yeah, I guess that would be kind of an example of where I just needed to give up something that I really actually loved for the greater thing, for the greater good of her and the kids. Any other examples you guys would like to share of maybe a time when your husband really was able to set something aside for you so you could recharge? Or think of the women's retreat, that's sort of obligatory, really, isn't it?
I think even now, just being in the trenches with parenting so many young kids, I think Patrick regularly sets aside his own rest and his own time alone. He loves mountain biking, and I know he would love to do that more on his own, but instead he takes our kids with him, the older boys, and that's, I know, a big sacrifice because he's going a lot slower and dealing with them on bikes and bad attitudes, but he does that willingly. He comes home every day after work, tired, but jumps right into dad mode and parenting and allows me to just have a break.
That's great.
Last week I took him out. I got yelled at. I hate you, Dad. You're the worst dad dragging up the hill.
I heard that higher up on the mountain.
Yeah. And then by the time I get home, they tell Kelsey how awesome it was and so glad
Yeah,
we do it.
I
They never
only
tell
heard-
me. I just get the other
I only
side.
heard the
You're like,
positive.
really?
Like,
You-
how
you
was
enjoyed
it?
that?
Oh, it's so fun. Yeah.
I hate
So-
Dad though.
I had one kid, no matter how many times we went biking, I would always have to carry him and his bike back. And it frustrated me to no end, but I try to do the same thing and now I look back on it as an old guy, and he's moved out and he's gone, he's moved away, and I think I would love to carry that kid and his bike back, just have one
That's
more
true.
day to do that, Yeah, Patty's.
I think sometimes people ask Ryan what his hobbies are, and he said, right now, my hobby is my family. And so he oftentimes chooses us over something fun. But he still does, like, he'll go mountain biking, and but he does choose us over those things because he knows that we need it and our kids need it. So I'm grateful for the sacrifice. I've had, like, a lot of different, like, health issues this year.
Yeah.
And Ryan has been gracious in coming home for doctor's appointments and that sort of thing.
That's great.
So,
That's great.
instead of me lugging all the kids with me.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah.
Never fun.
No,
Right
it's
on.
not.
What's something small your husband does regularly that makes you feel seen and deeply cared for? And guys, did you know that really mattered to your wife? Just something that you regularly do that makes her feel cared for. I know for me, I'll just go first and you can ruminate and think of something while I talk. But that, for me, it is fixing anything in the home. My wife's love language is doing stuff for her, like fixing something without being asked or told. And it could be something as simple as that light switch, that little cover on that light switch is broke. And I go to Home Depot and just buy one, and it's done. And she feels so loved by that. And it's like, I just try to find things like that to fix and do, even though I'm terrible at it. And I have to YouTube everything, right? So it's always the small things. It's almost never the big things. It's all of the little ways in which we just love each other. But is there ways in which your husbands will do things like that for you? It's really your love language, and they're tuned into it. They know. And they try to provide that. Flowers, it could be anything.
I got this one.
Yeah.
Ryan, every couple of weeks, will surprise me with coffee. And it'll be like when I'm in the midst of running errands with the kids, like either like at piano practice or gymnastics, and he randomly shows up and he knows my coffee order, which is saying something because Ryan
So awesome.
is not a coffee drinker.
Oh, no, he's not.
Yeah, and
We've heard that
yeah.
many times.
Facilitating her addiction.
Yeah, it sure is.
Just have the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. And so when, like, just last week I was at, we had dentist appointments, our basement flooded, we had piano, I was at gymnastics, and Ryan showed up with a sweet cream cold brew. And I, like, my face lit up and like that. I'm like, oh, not only does he, like, he sees me, he knows that I would desire this, and he got my order right. Like,
That's awesome.
I feel loved.
Yes.
So
that's
yes, I
great.
do know that coffee matters that much to her. And I've had to adjust as somebody the first few years who tried to get her off of coffee. And now it's a battle that I didn't lead well in, and I've lost. So,
You lost.
Way to
So now
stand
you're
strong, Laura.
sacrificially
maybe,
loving
yeah,
because
maybe
you lost.
leadership looks like picking the right battles.
Yeah.
One other thing is my wife loves her sleep, and I when I wake up, I'm ready to go.
Yeah,
I got things I want to get done in the day, and I would often wake her up in the same manner early on in the years. And even now when she's waking up earlier, we're both trying to work out in the mornings and stuff. But if I do that gently and patiently
And with coffee.
and not always with coffee, but if I do it like, you know how people keep snoozing alarms?
Yeah.
Like if I'm the snooze, and then I just keep coming back to her gently. Eventually she gets out of bed.
Right
so
on.
I've learned a gentleness helps.
Those are great examples. I love that. Things you would not prefer, but you know, you sort of, you know, you hate coffee. You've told us that a million times, and you've never ever bought coffee for the staff, and
And
so
we noticed.
and so the fact that you would do it for your wife
It's the
just
one
shows how
allowable
special.
addiction, but that's another podcast.
What about the Murphys? What about you guys?
Oh, so our oldest plays soccer, and I love to watch him play. I played a lot of soccer as a kid, and I just really lock in, like full soccer mom, in the zone watching him. And the hard thing is we have 5 other little kids, 10 and under, running around, right? But Patrick knows how into the game I am, and so he is managing.
You also can hear how.
Yeah.
Everybody knows how to
Yes, everyone's aware. Everything else just kind of fades away, and I'm locked in on the game. And he is managing all of the chaos behind the scenes, breaking up fights, taking screaming kids off the field, which I don't even notice until they're like on the other side, and it comes into my vision that he's had to deal with that. But that's it's a small thing, but he knows it means a lot
That's
to me.
huge for you because it allows you to just focus on the thing that you came for, and
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I see some of the game,
You see
which
enough.
is still good. And
Yeah.
then, but I think my impetus for that, I didn't know it was a small thing I was doing. I just didn't want them screaming because I look at all the other parents and everyone would look at the screaming kid. So that's how it all started, was out of self-preservation.
Yeah.
Somewhat of respect.
And I'm
Yeah.
oblivious because my focus is on the game.
So that's how it
That's awesome.
started, but that's not how it is now.
Yeah.
Now it's just,
It's
what
out
we
of
do.
love.
yeah.
It is an act of love. Right on. Anybody else have anything?
I really love flowers and nature and sorry, I'll speak into the microphone. You know, I love having fresh flowers in our house. I just get really Snow White about stuff. But I feel like every month Daniel comes home with Clementine from the store, and they both have a bouquet of flowers for me, and it just makes my whole week different because I just love looking at them and smelling them, and I really appreciate Daniel being thoughtful about that. And that's not his love language. His love language isn't gifts, so it's hard for him to think of those things, but I really appreciate that you do that.
That's a great example, and I will tell you this. If you do things like that, like on Mother's Day, I get up, and every one of my kids that still live at my house, I'm trying to get them out, but they've all gotten Carrie gifts and flowers on Mother's Day. And I had said to Carrie the week before, because I get her flowers all the time, I said, what do you want for Mother's Day? I don't want anything. I just want to go to the park, and I just want to eat a sandwich, or, you know, like I just want to be together. was like, great. But to see my kids do that, they'll see him do that, and then they'll treat you like that later because they just learn by him modeling that. It's so great.
I'm not real good at it. And in fact, I cried yesterday morning because Kristen, I bought stuff for Mother's Day to like set out for her because
The
I
night
get
before.
to the church between 5:30 and 6 on Sundays, and so I bought some stuff and I was going to set up a little like Mother's Day display for her, and I just totally forgot. Completely spaced it, so it's all still in the bags. And Kristen calls me in the morning. She's like, "Oh, good morning. I just called to say I love you." I'm going out into the living room, and I just felt so stupid and heartbroken because I know it's important. It's meaningful.
Stay in your room.
Go find those bags.
I know that it's meaningful for her, but I'm not good at it. I just, I space it when I wake up in the morning, and I just was overwhelmed with this, like, oh, she's not going to feel special. She's not going to feel.
I was putting Clementine had ballet on Saturday night really late, and I was putting her to bed, and he left to go to the store at 10:30 at night to get flowers and a card and chocolates, super sweet. So that was filling for me, and I'm not going to hold it
And you
against
knew
you.
that. The intention was there.
Yeah, exactly. We have to have grace for those things.
Here at church.
I know.
What about
But you're right,
Josh,
it doesn't
man?
look pretty all the time.
Josh, I want to hear from you. What have you discovered about Gracie that you didn't know before? And now that you're married to her, there's just ways that she wants to be loved. She enjoys being loved.
Yeah. The first example that comes to mind is she's very physically affectionate, and I'm not at all. So that's been one thing I've had to learn for sure. Like, especially when when we're at church, we're just listening to the sermon on Sundays. I just should have an arm around her or hold her hand or, just have a hand on her thigh. She just appreciates me showing my love in that way. And it goes back to when I come home after work or when she comes home, and I'm already there. I just need to give her a hug and a kiss, tell her I love her. It's good to see her. So those are the things she appreciates most, I think.
I'm going to start giving you a hug every time I see you.
Every time we see you, brother.
A holy kiss.
Don't tempt me.
Yeah, my wife would be very similar to what you just described concerning Gracie, and it's been I'm not naturally a big PDA person, and
gonna
there's
hug
been
you
some
every
fun
day, bro.
conversations.
Apparently holding hands
Welcome
is
to work,
PDA
Ryan.
according to
Okay,
Ryan.
all right.
Hugs and
She often
kisses.
tells me they need to see a good example within church. I'm like, okay. They can look at Josh and Gracie.
Where I respond with, ew.
I get some weird looks from youth students. Whenever we kiss.
That's okay.
My wife and I are exactly the opposite. I love physical affection and verbal praise. I need to be told how wonderful I am every day. And she does not need that at all. But, man, she has done a fantastic job over the years of just seeing when my face gets long and I just look empty. She'll come over and just give me a spontaneous kiss. And, I mean, it just lights me up, man. But she just kind of over the years, she just kind of learned what my signals are, and it's such a great way to, you kind of grow into that too, especially as old people. So moving on here, something that's a little more touchy. How do you live out the idea of submission as co-equals in your marriage? And could you give us an example of what that actually looks like in the day-to-day? So let's just start there. How do you live this out? Where does the rubber hit the road here? In terms of submission, and I'll just go first, my wife and I, as former Pentecostals, we both kind of have started from an egalitarian perspective. And for those of you who didn't hear the message yesterday, that just is the view that there are no God-given role distinctions between the co-equals, right? That anything you can do, I can do better, that sort of thing. And that is not something that we teach here at this church. We teach that among the co-equals, there is a natural leadership role for the man to play, the husband to play, that is God ordained. Leadership begins in Genesis 1 and 2, not in the fall, Genesis 3. And the New Testament really does reflect that structure, as we talked about yesterday. At the same time, Paul doesn't really tell us in that chapter what submission really looks like. in the context of the home, in the context of the male's loving, sacrificial relationship or, efforts toward the wife. So what does it look like? What should it look like? My wife and I, even when we were egalitarian, I have to say, in theory, we were complementarian in practice. And she and I were talking about this the other day. She was like, we've always been complementarian, Jeff. Like, I've always followed your natural lead. I've always wanted to. I want a man who leads like Jesus. And I've always wanted a husband who would take the lead spiritually in our home and help me plan our vacations and do all the things that, that you do. And so when we kind of shifted theoretically, to the complementarian view, we didn't have a lot to change, really nothing at all, actually. Yeah. So what does it look like in the context of the day-to-day stuff of marriage?
Can I go first?
Yes.
I suck at submission. I'll tell you that right now. And I came from a place where I didn't get married until I was 33. So I had so many years of independence and, providing for myself and being my own person. And then coming into a marriage with Daniel, I wanted more than anything to be this precious, meek wife. But that's just not me. That I'm a strong-willed, very...
No.
Really?
I know, it's surprising. I'm bossy.
Assertive.
I think that my way is the best way. Like, that really just is my personality. And it's great in the workforce.
Yeah.
But as Daniel's wife, I have really struggled to remember that he is the one that will get, will be judged about our marriage, and
Like give an account to God for.
Yeah, I won't. And God is teaching him how to be a husband. I'm not. That's not my job,
Yeah.
And I wanted to rule my own self. And what I found over the last 11 years is the more that I step aside and sit and let Daniel lead, the happier I feel, the less pressure I feel. I don't have to protect myself and,
Sure.
claw my way through life.
So what would be an example of that? Like something where Daniel has to step up and take the lead?
Okay, well, this is a funny one. I'm going to talk about Botox.
Okay, yeah. Let's do that.
So I'm 44, and I'm starting to see wrinkles in my eyes and like across my forehead, and I really wanted to get Botox because I want to stay young. I want to look good. And I was in California, and my sister was going to go get Botox, so I wanted to go with her. And I said, "Can I get Botox?" And everyone's going to be like, "Why'd you ask him? You don't need to ask permission." But it's a lot of money, so I'm not going to just spend $600.
And it's Go ahead.
What is it?
Finish your story.
So I called him and I said,
was
"Hey,
great, but keep going.
can I get Botox?" And he said, "Why do you want to get Botox?" And I said, "Because I have these wrinkles on my forehead and by my eyes." And he said, "What's wrong with that?" And I said, "I just don't like it." And he said, "Why don't you like aging? God created us to age." And we had this whole conversation, and I was really frustrated because I wasn't getting what I wanted. But as my husband, his wisdom was, "You were beautiful the way that you are, and you have aged this way because God made you this way. And I want you to accept yourself and feel confident in the way that God has created you." And I didn't get off the phone and go, "You guys, I'm not going to get Botox because I feel so good about myself now." It was really hard to be like, I'm not going to do it. And try to explain to my friends why Daniel, had coached me to not coached. What word am I looking for?
Yeah.
Instructed.
Anyway, it was hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to agree with him in moments where I have my mind set on the thing that I want to do.
Right. But I love the way you described him doing that. Like typical Daniel, he doesn't just sort of lay down the law and just like, this is what you got to do, woman. He doesn't do that. He's explaining the depth of it. He's explaining the heart behind it, and I love that about Daniel's approach. Yeah, Daniel.
To be fair, too, I also don't want her injecting
Stop.
a biological weapon into
That's a
her
whole
face.
other conversation.
Botulism into your face.
But
You do what's right for you.
as much as she says that she sucks at submission, it's one of those things where, like, I'm trying to remember who said it. It may have been C.S. Lewis, talked about how you don't know what it means to resist sin until you actually resisted it, right? You don't know how the difficulty of it. Her being strong-willed, her disposition towards being submissive is way harder. It's a much greater act of faith than the person who that's their just kind of disposition is to be led along. And, and where meekness and following is not a difficult thing.
Yeah,
right. And so she says that she's terrible at it, but her disposition is towards it.
Right.
And everybody has moments where we succeed and fail, and I have failed in my leadership tremendously, and that has burned trust with Kristen, and that makes the submission harder. Yeah. To when I'm acting in a trustworthy fashion. Right. It's easier for her to default towards submission. Yeah. Than when I've
not
biffed
like
it
Christ.
Or I'm not. I'm not. But I do want to honor her in that, because that has been and continues to be her default attitude towards me is I want to submit. Yeah. I mess up. I fail at it. But it's not I don't feel like I'm constantly in a battle of wills with her.
For sure.
In the meta sense that our marriage is that's the primary characteristic of our
I love
marriage.
this personal example. First of all, thank you for sharing that. It's very personal, and I really like this example. I would say on the other side of that, though, there are times when I just feel like I am the figurehead. I'm a part of a constitutional monarchy where I'm just putting my stamp on things that I frankly do not care about. Like, there are things that I've deferred to Carrie's leadership because, like, her ability to manage the home, she cares about 1,000 things more every day than I ever care about. My children would be so dilapidated and disheveled and undernourished and they would never have had a single experience other than studying theology with me. If I had not deferred to her wisdom and her gifting of managing the home and educating our children and doing all that. And there are ways like that in our marriage that I've just said, she'll come to me and she'll say, she's clearly the more gifted person. Like, she's clearly the person who can do that job in our marriage better. And she'll say, what do you think? What should we do? And I'm like, I think we should do whatever you want to do, because this is also part of submission. It is honoring that person in the areas of their strengths and their skills and their giftings and their callings within the marriage. And I don't think that's an abdication of our leadership. I think that is a way in which we do serve our wives as well by really allowing them to flourish in those areas of gifting.
I feel like that is the biggest hardship in this discussion of submission is the fight against the world's definition of submission and what submission actually is.
Subjugation.
Because you say the word submission and it feels kind of icky. Like,
for sure.
Women, you should be submitting to your husbands. It feels a little like it has a bad connotation. Right. Right. And I really appreciated how you laid it out yesterday, that it really is, as a husband, there's so many things that God has given to him that he's amazing at. And as a wife, there's so many things, but really the responsibility lays on the husband to lead and shepherd and guide. And I think that for a lot of women, that's hard to hear. Right. Because probably in a lot of marriages, that's not being played out. Yeah. in the way that it's supposed to look.
Right.
You know?
Oh, for sure. That's
But
definitely
I love
true.
that you will give Carrie that the responsibilities that she is good at.
Well, it takes pressure off of me. I don't have to micromanage the home, and she's really good at that, and I hate doing that. And so I don't feel some kind of weird responsibility to sign off on every decision that's made in the home. And I don't think that's what Paul is
No.
even talking about there. Unless, as a couple, you decided, yeah, we do like that structure, and that does work for us. And what about the Patties? What about you guys? I'm sorry. Patties. I was looking at Patrick, and I always call him Patty, so I'm like,
Oh, you want me to speak? Okay.
Yeah, you can speak.
whatever your name is.
I allow you
Yeah.
to speak.
I might be. I don't know if I'm answering this question. I was told early on by Laura's dad that she has the nickname of the General within her family, and that any guy that she was going to bring home, they just trusted was going to be strong enough to, he would say probably like put up with her. But I remember thinking that, and then in many ways, though, I don't feel like I've ever seen the General come out at me. I mean, in many ways, what you guys are describing is. And what you even said yesterday in management of the household, and she doesn't run our household like a general, but I trust her, and I trust her implicitly.
Totally. And
like, so we talk about things often. My leadership looks like asking her opinion all the time, and more often than not, honestly, in our case, like she doesn't have one. If anything, I'm like pulling teeth to try to get one.
Yeah, man.
And then I feel the weight of leadership even more in those moments, because I start to probably second guess myself. Am I leading well in this, or if I'm just going to make this decision? But she
Right.
she affirms that she's willing to follow me. Even moving here early on in our marriage, we definitely had things to work through, and I'm sure we'll get to that in a little bit. But I don't know if I have a specific example. I've never had to. I think there's maybe been one or two times maybe where I was maybe asking, can you trust me in this?
Sure.
But more often than not, if I'm making my position known and I'm desiring, I generally have a direction that I want the family to go in and I want the household to look like. And if she has something against it, she'll for sure tell me, but more
Yeah.
often than not, I think she's in the same
Yeah.
vein. And so
Can I
that's
ask
been
you
helpful.
just a kind of a personal question about your education? Because I know a little bit of what that costs you guys in terms of time and
Mm-hmm.
just money and everything.
All right,
Is
Laura.
that a conversation that is that a conversation that you have with the General? I mean, is it? Is it
Yeah,
something where
so-
you guys decide together? Okay, I'm gonna, I'm gonna pursue this for this season, but then we have to take this season off because.
Yeah, I think
we
twice
just can't do
that's
it.
happened, right? So when we moved to Louisville, for me to go through with a Master of Divinity, I knew that I would be doing school more and working less, and she would be working more full time. This is before we had kids.
Oh yeah.
And honestly, I still struggled with that many days.
Just as a man, or what?
Just as a man
Yeah,
and desiring to
totally.
provide, and I tend to hold that scripture probably a little bit tighter than others, but but I knew that I was like working full time in school and then at least working part time and doing church work and all this, and then eventually shifted once we started having kids, and she was able to stay home. But then a couple years ago when I went back, and Christ Community was gracious enough to help out with the Master of Theology, we sat down and we talked about it. We knew it was a good opportunity that they were going to help us with it, but we knew that it was going to be a major sacrifice of time, and Daniel can even speak to this too. And so I was just up here nonstop for that year and a half.
Yeah, I remember that.
Just trying to knock it out, and office was a mess, and I got it done, and like we've been so good roughly, that year and a half, and I
Yep.
got it done, got it submitted, brought it home so she could like read the foreword of praising her and all that. And then one of the biggest fights we ever had. She had it like pent up. Thankfully, she was like going to.
I have a lot to say right
And then
now.
you
You're
saw
done.
the General.
She was like, she was going to, I think, visit a funeral,
The
like gonna be
General
with her
came out.
family, and I was like, I got the kids. You go to the funeral. I think those days away were good for her.
Sure was.
But in many ways, you count the cost beforehand, but you don't realize what it actually costs going
There
through it.
are costs
And,
along the way.
yeah.
I will tell you that this is an area where I've failed miserably, terribly. I am not the example here. I have never done one single degree ever asked her permission or said, can we afford this? I've just done it. I've informed her. I'm signed up for the program. I'll let you know when I'm done. And this is what it's going to cost our family. And I've just done it. And I do regret having done things that way. And if I had it to do over, I'd probably do it more your way. I mean, I would. I mean, I'm saying it ended up in a fight.
Well,
but
I do want to
Can I
say
clarify?
that, you can clarify, but I do want to say that I've often come to her like, hey,
This is
PhD,
God's direction.
Jeff says strike while the iron's hot.
Yeah,
And I'm
I
like,
know. Don't listen to
probably
me.
won't have
bro.
a marriage.
Don't
after
listen to me.
this, so.
I will
That's not
steer
true.
you wrong, bro.
Part of it was when Ryan finished his THM, it was like in April, I think it was around April, May.
Yeah.
And so all of the youth graduation stuff was coming up, the, senior dinner, all this stuff was coming up.
Oh man, I
And so
remember
in my
that.
mind, I was thinking, oh, he's going to be done. I'm going to see him. And all of a sudden he's like, I've got this on the calendar and that on the calendar. And I was like, what? You know?
Yeah.
And you can't come. Yeah, and I feel bad.
And it's your funeral.
My poor grandfather went to
It's Ryan's funeral.
but once I had that time away, we were good. But yeah, we talk about finances. I am extremely frugal, and so it's really important to me that we have those conversations.
Oh,
'cause
that's great.
Money, it stresses me out.
And do you guys feel like you're on the same page with that
Oh,
mostly, or
Ryan and I are very
Yeah.
like-minded,
yeah,
which I think also helps with submission. Like we
yeah,
have the same goals in life, but there's trust on both sides, and like he trusts me to take care of my role, and I trust that he's taking care of
Yeah.
his role.
right.
And because we have that trust, it makes our marriage work really well.
Yeah. I will say, like,
That's
as one
awesome.
example when it comes to finances, is I think she was doing the finances early on in our marriage. She was a math teacher, math education. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense for her to do.
Yeah,
And I've always
yeah.
been interested in finances. But then I saw that it was causing some
Stressful?
arguments, but causing stress for her because, like, finances just stress her out. And
Yeah.
so I just took it. And,
Yeah.
and they still sometimes stress her out, but
Yeah,
not the day to day by no means. And I just she always says if I die, she has no idea what to pay or
Oh,
where.
I
So
know. Yeah.
yeah,
So same with me and Carrie.
yeah,
Yeah, I took the finances years ago, and I will inform her. Oh, we have a new health savings account, just so you know. Here's the number and stuff. But she doesn't deal with any of that, and I'll just tell her we have this, that, and this, but she wants to know, like she wants to know what are those things and how do I access those things. But the day to day, just managing them is no problem for me, and it's one of those things where she's good with me doing it. What about you guys?
the other patties.
The
I
Murphys?
can. I would answer this one like how does submission actually look. I'll start with actually my deficiency. And the flesh, abdicating responsibility, abdicating leadership is probably my disposition towards that in the flesh.
Yeah.
So how has that played out in our marriage? Me handing things off to her just because I don't want to deal with it or want to involve myself. So like healthcare for kids, you've taken that. Schooling for the kids. Yeah. So my disposition is to abdicate. But then what comes along with that, when I do recognize the need to lead, I think what is I'm uncertain or I'm hesitant to do it. And so there's a lot of self-doubt about, is this leadership good? Is it right? And so then any pushback from her is a confirmation of that hesitation or that I'm not doing this right. And so then it spirals. I would say that's how it's worked out in the past. And as it changes, we have to unlearn some patterns that we've just adopted for the first half of our marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think where we've done well and where we've improved has been in parenting and just being on the same page. That for a while, I stay home with our kids and he goes to work, and that is great. We like that model. But I was home all day with these kids that are crazy and, having a really hard day. And then dad comes home and they're thrilled to see him. And these kids who have been so disobedient all day, all of a sudden it's party time because dad's home.
Right.
And he is unaware of the chaotic day that I've had. And so he's not giving in to them, but he's like, yeah, let's play. Yeah, you want this treat? Yeah, sure. And so then I'm mad at him because I'm like, whoa. I have been working all day taking care of these difficult kids, and you come home and it's like it's party time.
And they're all grounded.
And yeah, and
By the way, they can't play.
They were grounded.
by the way, they are all in trouble.
If you
And-
lined them up, that would be helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, and it really what was happening was just a lack of communication
Yeah.
throughout our day. And so something that he does regularly now, every day he calls me in the afternoon just to check in and say, how are things going? How are the kids? What fires have you put out?
What's the temperature?
Yeah, what fires do
Awesome.
I need to put out when I come home? That way when
a
he
good idea.
when he does walk in the door, I can trust him.
Yeah, I call at lunch, and then I call right before I come home.
That's awesome.
Those are 2 times.
That's
Yeah.
another area where I've failed, where I haven't done that with Carrie that much when our kids were growing up. And I loved coming home and being the rock star, like being
Oh, it's
this.
the best.
It's it
Yeah,
was
what is
so
that
great.
like?
I know. Well, I'll tell you what
hard
it's like.
being
I'll tell you what it's like. I'll tell you what it's like. Now that they're teenagers and adults, they do not care one whit about me, and she is their whole world. Like she's the one they initiate a conversation with. I have to find out everything that's going on in their lives, even the kids I was the closest to, through her, because there was something about that doing that mom thing that just transferred. They just know mom loves them in a way that dad can't really do, like during the day and all that. And as they get older, man, you become the center of their solar system, not dad. Dad is just kind of the guy who you become Bruce Willis in The Sixth Sense. You think you're alive, and
Again,
the truth
Sixth
is
Sense.
you're a
Probably an
ghost, and
overstatement,
no
Jeff,
one
but we
knows that you
appreciate the
even
picture.
live.
The movie really made an
Anyway,
impression on you.
That's a great movie.
any case, no, wonderful, awesome, great. Thanks for sharing all of those things. Josh, what about you guys?
Yeah. No, I didn't get a chance to talk this one out with her, so I'll try to
Careful.
speak.
Careful,
Speak for
Josh.
myself here. I mean, in terms of finances, like kind of a similar situation like you. That's just been something that I've done from the beginning. There hasn't been much discussion about that. In terms of us submitting to each other, I would say that it hasn't been something that we've approached super intentionally, but it's definitely been done naturally. And I think an area that I was actually feeling convicted about this in the first 2 questions, but an area that she's been really kind and gracious to me is in my pursuit of hobbies. I love to rock climb and fly fish, and I think to a fault. Like hearing you guys talk about giving up your hobbies, I've already been thinking about this throughout the last few weeks. So like, I need to slow down a little bit and spend more time with her. But she also understands my love for those things and has been like more than probably too willing sometimes to let me go and pursue those. So maybe, yeah, I would say she loves me in that way, and that she allows me to pursue those things, but I'm certainly maybe taking advantage of it. So
Thanks, brother.
Good confession.
I'm going to skip down here. So let's be honest. Sometimes as husbands, we get it wrong. And so wives, how do you speak the truth in love when that happens? And guys, how do you stay open to correction, to a course correction when your wife really needs to say, okay, honey, we got this one wrong and we need to correct? Do you feel the freedom in your marriage to okay, Kristen is smiling, grinning like the Grinch. So tell us what's on your mind about that.
I am a very strong-willed person. And so if you're not doing it my way, it's not the right way. And my goal is to make sure that you correct yourself and do it my way. And that has been a huge struggle for me in marriage, because I always tell Daniel, you're so lucky you're the guy.
Confession time.
Because it's so hard. It's so hard it's hard. Anyway, I used to just expect Daniel to know when he's done something that I don't approve of or
Yeah.
appreciate, you know.
Yeah.
And then I would respond to him like we've already had this conversation and he's still doing it, you know. And so it was the very common, "What's wrong?" "Nothing," you know.
Yeah.
Is there something wrong? Probably you should know, you know, already. Yes, so much passive aggressiveness. But now I
Aggressive submissiveness.
so aggressive. When I realize there's something that I'm frustrated about with Daniel, I make myself pray about it first before I go to him, because I want to have the right attitude. I want him to hear me, and when I come at him with emotion,
Yeah.
it's not it can't get into his brain because he's
Right.
too concerned with the fact that his lovely, beautiful wife is like
Yeah,
upset. You know, like it just doesn't. It
The
can't
content
compute.
doesn't get
Yeah,
through.
yeah. So I try really hard to pray first and make sure that I'm valid in the thing that I want to bring
Yeah.
to Daniel. And I find a time where we can really sit and talk about it. And usually that's at night after we put Clementine to bed, which is a terrible time to have a hard conversation because we're both tired. So
Sure.
we've made a rule that after 9:00, it's too late to have a hard conversation,
Right.
unless
Are
it's
you
an
both
emergency.
morning people?
No,
No. I know he is, but you're not.
Daniel is.
Yeah.
I'm becoming one.
Yeah, she's
I get
So
up
about
at 6:30.
9:00, he gets the 1,000-yard stare,
Yes,
and it's
exactly.
my brain starts powering down at 7, and I hang in there until 9, and then at 9 it's
Yeah.
just.
Oh, I'm the same way, brother.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
But when I tell him how I'm feeling, I try very hard not to use things like, you know, the common, "You make me feel this way."
Yeah.
You know, when you do this, I tend to feel this way. And it's really hard for me. And when I do that, there's very little. I can't think of a time where I've had Daniel respond to me with, "Well, that's stupid, and you're and you're wrong." We talk about it. I can't think of a specific thing where I know we talked about it yesterday, but you go ahead.
Yeah, no, the if emotion is involved, if she comes in the midst of her complaint and frustration, it is very difficult not to go into clinical. All right, well, now we're going to hash out who's right and who's wrong.
Right.
Not, hey, I'm recognizing there's something deeper
Sure.
here.
Yeah.
That as my partner, I want to be able to meet for you, and
Right.
and so if she comes to me and says, hey, I would like to speak with you about something, I'm instantly in partner mode, right? When she leads with questions, right?
Why did we do that? Or,
Yeah, or hey, you did this thing and I don't understand it. It ruined the day for us here, like
Sure.
or this plan or whatever.
Sure.
That again, those are just basic communication skills of any interpersonal relationship. But I also have to recognize that, Kristen's behind my defenses. Right, when somebody comes up to me on Sunday morning and complains about a song choice or something that I said on stage or whatever,
Like the senior pastor.
I don't
No,
I don't dismiss it, but it doesn't hit the same. It doesn't hurt because you're outside my defensive perimeter.
Yeah, sure.
Kristen's in the keep,
Yeah.
right? So that even the slightest touch is really
very
painful.
sensitive,
It's very and so I have to remind myself in those moments. She is not a person who is disrespectful to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Wow.
That is not her disposition.
Mm-hmm.
It is to be disrespectful.
I'm trying not to be that way.
But that's not her disposition.
That's not my
regu-
desire.
Yeah,
Right.
she's
Right.
You're right. Now, she may have been disrespectful in the way that she communicated this, but her nature is not like the
Yes.
testimony of our marriage is not that she is a chronic disrespecter. So you responding in a way where it's like, well, here it comes again.
Yeah.
Here's the gripe. Here's the nagging wife. Like, that's the wrong response.
Yeah,
That's not
right.
that is not an accurate reflection of your sister in Christ. You're not assuming the best of her.
Yeah.
You're not, and then the other thing that I have to remember is, if I have done something wrong, I am going to feel bad about it.
Yeah.
And it is okay to feel bad about doing wrong things. And when I get into my deepest insecurity with her, when I get the most defensive, when I get the most combative, is when I am not acting in a way that I admire.
Yeah.
And she's pointing it out, and then I do get defensive and I do get insecure because I'm not behaving in an honorable,
Right.
I haven't been.
Right.
And so and I have to remind myself, she is not doing this to me. Right? In
Yeah.
those moments, you have behaved in a fashion that you find not esteemable.
Yeah.
And so you don't feel esteemed because you've
Right.
done this, not because she is making you feel this way. And then, in the moments where it does, cross the line into disrespect, where, hey, you have behaved in a fashion that's inappropriate for anybody. That's one of those moments where you got to get through the argument first.
Yeah.
And then say, hey, when you spoke to me this way, this was my experience, and I don't want that moving forward.
Yeah. I know I can trigger Carrie's disrespect toward me. And Paul commands us here, the wives, respect your husbands, husbands, love your wives. But I can totally pour gasoline on her fire if I am a bull that walks around with my own china shop, and I just break stuff, and I don't know other people are around me, and I'm doing that. And that will make things worse for her. Like that's so much worse. And when I do that, man, probably the last 10 years, I've just tried to repent immediately and say, honey, oh man, I'm acting out of my habit, not out of my heart. Right? Because my heart, that's not my heart, but that's my habit. That's what I brought into this marriage. That's my luggage, and so I will immediately just try to say, stop. Let's get off the ledge here. Let's de-escalate. I'm really sorry. I was in the wrong. And I think that she's not required at all to be a little weak, submissive wife in that moment. She is speaking truth into my heart and into my life, and I need to hear that as a truth teller. And then she goes right back to being respectful and deferential, and that's great. But oftentimes when she fails, it's because I failed. It's because I already did that. And so, yeah, I kind of hear what you're saying there. What about Patty's? Laura, I want to hear from you.
Ryan usually knows if something's wrong or something wrong just by my facial expressions.
Oh, okay.
Ryan always says, he can tell by my eyebrows.
Oh, man. Whatever shape your eyebrows are.
Entire. Yeah. But Ryan is always really quick to apologize and to admit when he's done wrong. A lot of our probably disagreement comes down to parenting. I am a female, and I grew up with 3 sisters. I grew up with a brother, but he's the only child. He's so far removed. And so watching Ryan parent Jed can be hard for me because I'm not a boy, and I don't know how boys respond. And
Right.
I'm like, but he's my baby, And so learning to let Ryan parent the way that he sees fit and submitting to that. And then learning how to have conversations after, hey, can you explain your reasoning? I didn't like the way that this happened.
Right.
And
So conflict between Ryan and little Jed, and you're like, I didn't like that electricity that got discharged or whatever it was.
And when Ryan and Ryan's also really quick to apologize to the kids too if he feels like he has maybe overreacted or.
Sounds like he has to do that a lot.
No.
Yeah, probably.
I did too, man.
But usually, typically when it comes to disagreements between Ryan and I in our marriage, we communicate well. We like to have time in the evenings to, if we have you hurt my feelings, we have those conversations. But Ryan's always really great at admitting when he's wrong, apologizing quickly. And I'm still learning how to not be defensive when it's my turn.
Right. So, but you feel like in the evenings you guys can have a little space there to. Do you have a set bedtime for your kids, 7:30? I know Carrie was an absolute Nazi with this. 7:30, you better not come out of that room. And I mean, it was she don't play. And
sounds like me and Carrie are similar.
Yeah, you and Carrie.
I'm learning to adapt better a little bit on bedtime. We always have a general bedtime and try to get that time, but trying to figure out, we got 2 olders that want to read later in bed, and then one that probably just wants to hang out with us 24/7 and comes up often in Jed. And so trying to be patient in the response. I think Laura, even though she's waking up early now, would probably be naturally more of a night owl. And I'm kind of like Daniel. Like if she starts like debriefing the day at like 9:45,
Oh yeah.
it's like my eyelids can't stop fluttering.
Right. Right.
I'm tracking.
Let's
I'm
do it at
tracking. I'm no longer
8:30.
tracking. Yeah.
When you talk about sacrificial love, like pillow talk is like my
Oh,
like
gosh.
emotional connection.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And so Ryan has to sacrifice a lot because I'm like, I want to hear everything about your day. I want to hear about every conversation.
More
Like hear something
details.
encouraging and then I want
He
to hear my
wants
whole
to drift
day.
off.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I'm like, it was good. I think I talked to a couple people, you know. But yeah, I you know, Lord making it sound so much better than I am. I do desire good feedback in life, but when for me, Laura's tone and volume is everything. And you know, she grew up with lots of siblings. I remember like first time there, like I wake up to, you know, they'll probably not love me telling this, but I wake up to her little sister just yelling like I'd never heard her dad. And I'm like, I'm texting Laura, like I'm in the laundry room where they put us to sleep, you know? I'm like, what is happening? Should I not come out? And she's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, she was losing on your dad. And she's like, oh, he like just wakes her up like that. And they just go out in the morning. And I'm
Holy
like,
smokes,
my
man.
dad would beat me, you know?
Oh
And
no, my
so-
dad loves it. This is like my dad's love language is button pushing and getting a reaction. I
Yeah.
may or may not have married my
Yeah.
dad.
Say.
Okay, I resent that, but
Weird.
nonetheless, but yeah, but so
Stir
she just
pattern.
grew up where like to win an argument, you have 4 other siblings, you raise your voice. I grew up with 1 sibling, and I'm like, why is your volume going up? I'm talking to you normally, you know, like. And
You
so-
mean
but
like
then,
at work when you talk to me sometimes
Yeah.
and you're like, why are
But
you
then
yelling
like
at
my
me?
my tendency is I can. I can use sarcasm and snide, and if
Yeah.
I hear your volume going up, then I'll cut you down with words.
Sure.
And that's horrible and not good. And you know, you mentioned earlier powering up. That's my disposition.
yeah.
I'm trying to be better at it.
Yeah.
So
And it has, you know, almost 13 years in, our marriage looks a lot different than year 1 and year 2, which was
yeah.
pretty rough.
Yeah.
One of my prayers, and I'm not kidding about this, a regular prayer is, Lord, help me to be more like Ryan and underreact to this person who's coming at me or something. And I fail at that sometimes. But I think I've helped him a little more.
Come
You
out.
know, yeah. Any case, that was random. Murphy's. So, how do you speak
Great.
truth into the husband's life when he needs to hear it?
Yeah, so I will admit I am not good at this. This is not my strength of speaking in love. I grew up in a house that was, we don't talk about things. If something bothers you, just stuff it, suck it up, and hope
Blow
it
up
goes
later.
away. Yeah, blow up later. So that's what I tend to do, and Patrick is not dumb. He, like Ryan, he can tell by my face when something is bothering me and by my disposition and my tone. And he is infinitely more patient than I am and more gracious. And he is really good at asking questions and taking the time to get to what's below the surface.
Yeah.
By just patience and continuing to
Patient digging.
Yeah,
Yes,
patient digging. Yeah, I am not a good communicator. That is not my strength. And even when he's asking these questions, I can go into defensive mode or shutdown mode really quickly. And he just has the endurance to keep going and to pull those answers out. And he is always the first to take responsibility. He's the first to apologize always. And he models that really well. It's something I'm striving to
Yeah, that's
to
good.
be
That's
better
great.
in.
So he kind of models here what you're saying is like pursuing you
He
when
does.
you just sort of crawl into a hole, and I don't want to talk about it, and I just don't want to air this out right now.
Yeah.
But he's good at just pursuing, and also being the first to ask for forgiveness or when he's blown it. Yeah,
I
that's
still
great.
get blindsided. Well, 2 weeks ago or whatever, I said, let's have some people over. And
Oh.
we needed to clean the house. And
Something had been building for a long time. So this is
I had
on me.
missed it.
Oh, you missed this.
I was not ready.
The kettle was whistling.
Yeah. Oh no, it wasn't. It
Oh.
immediately whistled.
Whistled out of nowhere.
It was
Wow, that was fast.
yeah,
Yeah.
quietly.
Yeah, and then that I would definitely say I'm better at reacting than being proactive. So leading to find out ahead of time that there's something going on, I'm missing that. But the second the whistle goes, then I snap into some mode. I can ask questions. It's more the pastoral side, and that's the gifting God has given me in our marriage, which is good.
Yeah.
So the proactive, I think what she has brought me for correction, the way she's done it, probably most fitting 2 times in our marriage, she's written me something that I had to read and respond to internally before coming to her. So I had to sit with her words, and then I had to wrestle with, is this true or not, and then see it lived out. Had she just told that to me, I don't think I would have seen it as it wouldn't have been as concrete.
Worth the thought process.
For the most part, yeah. So now she's given me something to read. It's in my mind. I'm ruminating on it. And then over the course of days and weeks, I see it lived out and proved to be true. So that's how she has brought correction to me in 2 areas that,
Right on.
that
Right
have
on.
produced good.
And that's more because I feel more comfortable. I kind of shut down sometimes when we're talking face to face. So if I can write it out and get my thoughts out, then it comes out in a more loving,
Because the bad
clear
side
way.
of me asking questions, I can ask so many questions that can confuse or contort the argument to be lighter than it needs to be. So that's the downside. That's how my flesh using questions to hide. I can do that. So
But you are such a good natural counselor, though. Like, I see the way you are with people coming in here, and I'm like, people come in here, I'm like, go meet with Pat, because I'm not in the mood. And he's so great about that, man. In our marriage, I would just say, I can hear the truth from Carrie so much easier, or I could speak the truth to Carrie so much easier when I've taken the time to hear the truth from her. Like, I know one of the areas right now at the stage of life we're in is I need to constantly speak the truth in love. Honey, they're not 7 anymore. Like, they're not 10. You're not that mom anymore. You got to let them go. They have to do their own things. And if they fail and they don't plan this thing, or they don't pack this thing, or they don't make this list and do this, then they fail. And failure will be their teacher. So you got to let them do it. She has such a hard time letting that go. She cannot hear that from me most days unless I have been very sympathetic. When she comes to me and say, honey, that was too harsh. Like, you crossed the line there a little bit. You got to take some heat off of that. She told me right before I got up to preach that sermon, which is why I said this. I asked you this afterwards, was I okay? And the last thing she said before I got up on the stage was, dial it down. Make sure you dial it down. I was like, yes, ma'am. And I just got up on the stage and took her advice, and I didn't sort of get hot. And I wasn't very passionate about anything. I just kind of taught the message, but I needed that. I needed her voice in my ear in that moment, And so there's that kind of give and take where I feel like, as the man, I need to take the initiative to speak the truth and be humble and admit my faults humbly. But she also needs to hear the truth from me. There are times when I have to say, Carrie, this is coaching. This is mentoring. You have to hear something from me that you don't see. This is maybe a blind spot. So last question here. If you're comfortable sharing, can you tell us about a time when your marriage hit a hard spot and maybe where love or submission got out of rhythm? And how did the Lord meet you in that season to kind of bring some equilibrium or bring you back and right the ship there? Anybody want to share anything? And if not, no worries. This isn't a counseling session. You don't have to air anything you don't want to air. But was there a time when your marriage hit a hard spot and these principles in Ephesians 5, it was really difficult for you to love sacrificially, or really difficult for you to submit as we submit to Christ, as the church submits to Christ?
I laugh. We had a young couple come to us once and say, "Hey, would you guys be our marriage mentors?" And we were right in the one of the worst
Yeah.
seasons of marriage ever, and we literally laughed in their faces.
Not sure you want that.
We said, we'll be your friends and we'll meet and like talk about marriage, but we're not in any.
help us.
But yeah, we've had some ups and downs. Like we were talking. Right now, we're in a really great season where we tend to be able to argue well, and like there'll be emotion in it, but there won't be any venom in it. And there was a season probably for like a year and a half where every argument that we were going to have was going all 9 rounds.
Really?
We were going to be
Oh,
up
yeah.
until 1:30 in the morning, and you just felt it from the beginning over whatever it was. Felt it from the beginning. This is going to end with Kristen rolled over in the bed,
Crying to
sobbing,
myself.
telling me that no, it's okay, we can go to sleep, and then
We can
me,
go to sleep. It's fine.
and then me rolling over and comforting her, and then like but you just knew from the start, and then
Right.
I would react badly because hey, now I'm trying to hit the ejection handle and get out of this. She's like, why are you avoiding the conversation?
Sure.
And so there have been seasons like that. I know one of the places where I have failed in my leadership the most was right after we moved up here. This is my first full-time ministry job.
Yeah.
And it was such a success in my mind of like, hey, I've transitioned from doing the Bible, the multi-vocational thing. And so I really wanted to devote myself to to kind of proving myself here, right? I got hired without a degree. I'm on staff with a guy with a PhD and multiple masters, and and so I'm fighting this insecurity of like they've taken a risk on me. It was actually really helpful one day when I think you said like maybe 3 or 4 years into it at our staff review, you said, Daniel, do you know that your job isn't on the line here?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I don't. I genuinely
Yeah,
don't
right, man.
understand that. But I threw myself into that, but my wife was in like horrible postpartum, and I didn't recognize how bad it was. And so I ended up, my leadership was poor because what I ended up doing was just trying to alleviate the symptom and not address what was going on. And so for like a year, we ate Jack in the Box pretty much every night because what I was trying to do is, hey, she's completely like stressed out and anxious. I'm just going to take this off her plate. Like I'll just run and grab something, we'll eat, and all of a sudden like your physical health is starting to go.
Yeah.
Right? You're not sleeping well. But all I was trying to do was just medicate the symptoms of stuff because I thought, hey, I'm just trying to bring care and ease instead of saying, no, this is a crisis and we have to deal with the root part of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're going to have to do the hard things, the things that we don't want to do in order to and that was a huge failure in leadership, and it has cost us in the long run. Like there's still fruit of it that we are trying to snip off, and roots that we're trying to.
It was so bad that I remember walking with my friend one day, and I'm crying to her, and I told her, if this is what marriage is, I don't want it anymore. And she rebuked me so quick and was like, you don't get to say that. You don't get to think that. That's basically saying divorce without saying it, And I went home that day and I told Daniel that I had said that and that she had rebuked me. And we figured out pretty quick that a lot needed to change.
Yeah.
But that was a really hard time.
Yeah.
And it was hard for me because I didn't trust Daniel.
Yeah.
So submitting to like his ideas and thoughts on how we could make our marriage better, I kind of scoffed at.
Right.
I didn't just decide I'm going to do it his way because that is what's best right now.
But I also wasn't leading in a way that was addressing the real problem.
Sure.
I was just trying to keep the house calm for her.
Keep things afloat.
In God's
Instead
providence,
of-
you guys were able to see it and move forward.
Well, because
And-
of our friends,
Yeah.
Dude, that
especially Ryan.
Praise God for that.
No, really. I remember you saying, you would say things to me like, Kristen, you can do that. You can handle that. And I'd be so mad at you, in my head, shut up, Brian. You don't know anything. But it was true.
I say that all the time at work.
You were trying to get Daniel to, take a stand.
Yeah.
And, hey, you can go mountain biking with us. Kristen Kristen can be by herself, you know? And I was so scared of having to learn,
Totally.
you know?
Boy, that's understandable. I'm going to go to the Murphys next just for time reasons. And
Yeah, I'd say our first real 5 years of marriage were rough. It was really hard. I was still in school at the time. We were so young when we got married. Patrick started a brand new job, full-time ministry. So we moved right after we got married. And then we started having kids and more kids. And we were just both really immature. We were both really selfish. I know I expected him to just intuitively read my mind and know what I needed when I needed it. And so I wasn't communicating expectations, but I had all of these expectations that he wasn't meeting. And so communication was really broken down.
And I thought at that time no news was good news. So
right.
Not gonna ask.
Right.
Right.
We're doing good.
Man.
Everything's fine.
A lot of guys
Grin and
operate
bear
that
it.
way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just thought, well, he just doesn't care then. And really,
So you
we
interpreted that as, well, he doesn't care about me because he's not doing mental telepathy and
Right.
he can't see what's in my brain.
Right. Right. And
Right
we
on.
weren't communicating well. And really, we were just operating as silos.
Yeah.
And it was any fight that we had was like me against him. You know, we were not a team. We were not a partnership. It was, well, I'm entering this in and I'm going to win.
I think we were both operating with deep insecurity, which is why we were so silent. And so there was a lot of self-loathing that we had towards ourselves, not towards but it came out as each other. But it was really, it was rooted in ourselves. We didn't like who we were, didn't like who I was as a husband. She didn't like who she was as a wife, as a mom, as a pastor. I would all say all those things. And it wasn't until 5 years then we finally gave each other permission to admit our own. I remember saying, I hate myself. Like, I remember saying that, and that was kind of like a watershed moment.
It
that gave
was
her
like
permission.
the gate open and this flood of we were able to be honest with each other
let go
for
of
the
a
first
lot.
time.
Yeah. Right.
It took a long time to get there, though.
It
It's weird.
did.
Why did it take 5 years to get to a place where you can be honest before your spouse?
I think part of
feeling
that
threat.
is just going from being a kid to an adult, and there are changes happening in your brain, and you kind of got to grow up. And
Gosh, we knew nothing. We knew
Yeah.
how to do. We both, when we were first married, thought that the other person was paying the electric bill for the longest
right.
time. Like we
Right,
knew
man.
nothing. We didn't know how health insurance
until the
worked.
lights went off, and you're like,
I don't
"Did
even
you
remember that. So funny. I
paying
forget
that.
so much.
I was like, why do we have this late fee? What is a deductible? I don't know what any of this is. Like, I was still in college eating at the cafeteria.
Yeah, man.
It was a
So
good calf, though.
It was.
That was a good
I miss
cafeteria."
that calf.
That's a great
I really
cafeteria.
do. Paid a lot of money for that calf food.
I had lunch with Dallas Willard
Still
today.
paying a lot of
I
money.
was yeah.
I think so. So even though that was the big watershed moment early on in the marriage, the reverberations of that still happen.
Yeah.
So if we were to
that's
come
true.
back to the same root of a lot of our difficult, I would say this past 6-7 months is another really intense season. I mean,
Yeah.
probably we're having big fights every 2 weeks. We had one last night, which is why we come in this morning wanting
Can we
to
come
figure-
over and watch?
No.
But I think it's a reverberation of a similar thing. There's still something in our heart the Lord wants attention of. We're unwilling to let the other see it.
It's that,
I think
it's
that's
the-
good to remember, though, that is a season. Like, every marriage goes through that.
Yeah.
We all have moments in our
Yeah.
life where we fight, and that's just what happens, and then we grow from it.
Yeah,
and we
man.
have a season of peace. And then we go back to that season every couple of years. You know,
And
that
it's
is
not
a
something
normal
wrong
thing.
that you need to worry
Yeah.
about. That is this the end?
I can
Yes,
tell you,
exactly.
man, until
Yeah.
Carrie and I have been married 31, 32 years, something like that. And you do go through those, you repeat those seasons. And it gets different. The intensity of it gets a little different. You get wiser. You do start to forget things. You're like, I didn't even know we were dealing with that. It does actually kind of get easier. But it does feel like you're repeating the same class. You're like, I thought we passed this class.
Dude,
You know, like I thought we made it.
Yeah.
I thought we got a B.
It's all in Genesis, man.
Yeah, it is.
It's that
there.
naked and unashamed, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're not, and you're blaming the other person, even though you're the one. You know, it's your guilt that you're trying to cover, but
Yeah.
you're making the accusation of
Totally.
the other. Like,
we
Yeah, yeah.
revert
Yeah.
back to those old habits sometimes.
Mhm.
But I would say
Yeah.
we have more hope now because we've seen growth.
Yeah, that's
and
what's
we've-
different.
Yeah, that's different.
sure.
We've seen the Lord work in our marriage and in us individually.
Yeah,
and
I remember
so-
last week I looked at you coming into church and I said, you asked me how I'm doing. I'm like, not good, but I know we'll work through it. We'll
Yeah.
get there. I'm like,
Yeah, it's not the
Yeah.
end of the world, which
Yeah.
is
We're
how
still
it,
best friends.
Yeah.
it felt. Yeah,
Yeah.
those first 5 years we felt more like, not I wouldn't say enemies, but we were against each
For
other.
sure, against
Yeah.
each other. We were
Yeah,
enemies.
yeah,
Yeah.
we weren't best friends.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. I really, really appreciate it. I think that would be very helpful for people to hear. Pastors and pastors' wives, we are human beings, and we deal with the same, exact same stuff that we have to help other people through all the
Yeah.
time. Patties.
I'll start. You correct me on stuff.
You general.
Yeah.
I think for sure we have moments, and I would say at this stage in our life, like generally shorter seasons of being persnickety or just feeling like communication isn't good or she's not being heard or my needs aren't being met or something that brings up fruition. But for us, what we often say is that the first 2 to 3 years were really, really hard. We never had a honeymoon phase. We never really were just delighting in each other early on. And then since that time have had to, by God's grace, it's gotten progressively better every year. And so that's just kind of been the growth of our marriage in one way. But those first few years, I made a lot of mistakes. I think we were learning how to communicate. I resonated with your bull in the china shop. I was just like, what do you mean you don't know what you're feeling? Like, I know what I'm feeling all the time. Like, what do you mean you can't communicate it to me? I'm literally telling you what I'm feeling right now. Like, I remember, like, it got so bad, she's like, I'm not putting up with you. She goes to sit out on the couch, and I'm thinking in my head, like, there's no way we're ever not sleeping in the same bed. So I walk out there and I princess carry her back to the bed and throw her in the bed. Like, we're sleeping in the same bed, And I was just like, yeah, learn from this, whatever you
Better
want.
than a
Christ
fireman
community.
carry.
Kristen did that to me once.
Yeah, but I was just like, I was, I'm young right now, but I was much younger then. We got married at 20 and 21, and we're immature in the faith, and just had things to work through.
Yeah.
And I remember praying specifically, and Laura was praying this, that when we moved to seminary, that the Lord would help her to open up. And he honestly did.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was me being a workaholic while in seminary and school, and then her parenting Jed for a long season by herself. And so moving here, even though I feel myself I can drift into the workaholic mode, is the most time we ever got to spend together before that. And so yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything or take away anything.
No, what you said was
It
accurate.
was a gentle Princess Carrie, but
Yeah, communication, like Kelsey said, is not my strong suit, especially when it comes to emotions. Like, I can feel a lot of things and not know what I'm feeling or why I'm feeling it. And Ryan is so direct. He hadn't learned how I process things.
Yeah.
So he wanted to know. He's like, what do you mean you don't understand? Like, why are you crying? I don't know why I'm crying, but I know I'm upset. And I don't know why. But some things that were helpful was both in Missouri when we were living there and in Louisville, we got plugged into a church that had couples that were older than we were. In Missouri, there was quite a few that were like in the next season of life. And I think that was helpful, being in fellowship with them. And then once we got to Louisville, having mentors was really helpful, both for our spiritual growth and also just like learning how to
like seeing a healthy marriage just lived out,
Right.
and then being able to honestly just go to somebody and be like, dude, like, what am I doing wrong? Like, this is what I'm seeing happening. Like, how are you handling this as a husband? I think she was doing the same thing to 1 or 2 wives. We just needed the wisdom that we didn't have. So, yeah.
Great feedback, great input. Thank you for sharing that. I will just close. Our time is over, but I just want to close with this. The struggles that we face in our marriages, whether it's loving each other like Jesus loved the church or submitting like the church submits to Jesus, this is part of all of our sanctification. Like, learning that other person is actually how we become sanctified, because it's the most difficult thing in the world is to imagine what it is like to be the other person. to think like they think, to think the way they think, to know what they know, to not know what they don't know, or to feel what they feel. And this is how God actually conforms us into the image of Christ, is we are constantly confronting those character and fallen issues in ourselves, and that spouse is mirroring that back to us. Like I can see my flaws so well, not because Carrie is always pointing them out, but because she is just such a fantastic person, and she's in so many ways the person I wish I could be, like just unbelievably long-suffering and patient and kind and gentle and just all those things. And I look at her and go, well, I'm not those things naturally. I'm smart and fun and super handsome.
Okay.
No, I'm just joking.
Wow.
But no,
that
I
out,
just
Daniel.
We'll edit that out.
Anyway, we're done. Thanks, guys, for coming in, and
Yeah.
thank you for sharing from your heart. And I think this will help a lot of people too. So, signing off. Bye bye.
All right. See you guys.
Bye bye. Thanks for coming.